Hey, what's up, guys? We're back with the Nexus Season 2 finals, and we're looking at 1902 now. And we'll actually start with the builds for Winter '01. As you recall, press is allowed. Press is allowed during the build and retreat phases. Really interesting. Does change the game quite a bit because you can go ahead and see what the fall moves are and then still negotiate your builds, whereas really standard thing, for example, that could happen in a game with no press is as Russia and Germany, for example here, as Germany, I'm probably not letting Russia into Sweden in all cases, but I think it is becoming more and more standard to do that because then at least Russia and Germany have a friend early on. And the idea is that Russia can then build in the south and continue working there, whereas Germany need not deal with something like a Warsaw build. That might be okay, but certainly not with a fleet south coast after they've just allowed Russia into Sweden. Probably some of the time, probably somewhere around 5 to 8%, as Russia having just made the deal with Germany. Circumstances might justify me playing in the south coast, but that's, as I said, 5 to 8%, very rare, less than 10% for sure, because having just made that deal, and Germany again does not have to let you into Sweden. I'm probably going to build in the south and be very comfortable because there's a lot to deal with. So let's carry on into these builds. If you recall, we made some predictions in the last video, so do check that out. We had Fleet Smyrna, Fleet Naples, Army Paris, Army Marseille, Fleet Brest, Army Munich is a prediction, Fleet London. I was advocating for Army Moscow, Army St. Petersburg, although Fleet North Coast would be fine too, depending on the negotiations. Army Budapest, and let's see if any of those predictions come true without knowing any of the negotiation that's occurring. So it looks like we were right in some cases and not in other cases. So looks like we have 2 fleets going down for France. So I gotta say I don't mind it. Italy may not be thrilled with that, but of course this doesn't have to be used in the south. This can be swung into the south coast and northwards. And from Germany's point of view, we were happy with Munich, and they were as well. Fleet London, as we predicted. Army Budapest, as we predicted. Fleet Smyrna. The only questions we had were we were predicting Moscow and something in the North Coast. I do like this Warsaw build, having thought about this in between recording the last and this, because this can really easily be used in the south right here in some fashion. And why don't we talk about what's going on here in the Balkans right away to kick off this video, because I think this is where, without having seen any of the negotiations, I'm very interested to have a look. It seems like as Russia, I can put a lot of pressure on Austria without even needing assistance. That much assistance from either Turkey or Italy. And now that I've shored up my my northern situation here with Germany, at least it seems this way. My builds would suggest to him that I'm happy he gave me the build in Sweden, and now let's chill. But of course, there's a lot of other things to consider before we can assume that things are going to be peaceful in Scandinavia. But having these 4 armies here, first of all, Moscow is flexible. Um, it is a deterrent against England making this move here to the north coast, because I can always bounce him there, and leaving it open is actually pretty interesting because at least it doesn't threat Norway, and if England does want to take St. Petersburg himself, then he's stated his intent, and so I do like Moscow for that reason. It doesn't threaten Norway, but it can also be used to defend St. Petersburg later, and also can be useful here in the south. It's a little bit like having an army in Liverpool or Yorkshire. If France is wondering what to do in 1902 and 1903, maybe early 1904, but he sees the army there, and maybe he holds off on making that convoy into Wales because it's just going to be that much harder with the army there. So it does serve this kind of latent defensive purpose. Even as you're negotiating, it's something to bring up, that I'm planning on keeping my army in Liverpool for a while. I'm planning on keeping it there, just to dissuade, as England, for instance, to dissuade the Frenchmen from making these overt plans, seen as the mainland is open. For example, if the army was in Norway for England. So what are some concrete plans that I expect here? I'm very interested to see. Well, first of all, I do like Turkey's position in general here. He's going to be able to take Aegean straight off. And while Austria, assuming that they're good with Italy, is able to move into Greece himself, I really do like having the Aegean and being able to make some leveraging negotiation before the fall season. So I'm very curious to see how that plays out, because we'll have Fleet Ionian, Fleet Greece, Fleet Aegean. Whereas sometimes that if either Austria is in Greece or Italy has opted to convoy to Tunis, then the Aegean move from Smyrna can be bounced. But in this situation, Smyrna will be able to reach the Aegean with no issues. And while you're probably continuing to bounce in the black, you're feeling quite snug, and you have a lot of options for negotiation, as Turkey, the Bulgarian army, can provide support in north or south, northwest or south from Bulgaria, and safely do so because you have Constantinople and Aegean. You're really, even with 4 units, doing just fine. So the question is strategically, what would you like to do as Turkey? And I think it really depends on how strong you sense this Austrian-Italian position to be. It feels like Italy at one point wanted to. Well, actually, we haven't seen Italy make a move against Austria at all. He's moved against Germany, which was defended from Ruhr. And we've seen Austria, though, be a little suspect of Italy, returning to Vienna, which allowed the Russian to get into Galicia. So suddenly the Austrian position on paper looks precarious. But we don't know what the negotiations are. But certainly as Turkey, I don't want Russia to overrun Austria unless I get a good piece of it, and unless there's a way for me to work with Germany or England against Russia at one point in the mid game. Because if it's just Russia rolling through the Balkans and I'm not getting much of that, maybe Russia's gained 3 centers and I'm getting 1 center, suddenly I may have a problem defending myself against the Russia the Russia. So the bear, I should say. So I'm probably inclined to offer some kind of support from Serbia into Romania, or from Budapest into Romania, and because I'm happy. Like I'm happy if Austria grows a little bit at Russia's expense here, seeing as it looks like Russia's pretty snug in the north and is going to be able to commit units here. But do I want to antagonize Russia? Would be a question. Like, can I antagonize him and still work with him later? That's a good question. It doesn't seem like I'm going to be able to get a build very, very soon, unless I can work a deal with either of Austria or Italy for Greece. And the question there would be, do I want to have Greece right at this juncture? There are situations I guess I wouldn't mind it, but I don't necessarily need it right away. I don't need it right away. I want to know what's going on in France. How is Italy and France's situation? Because if Italy or Austria takes Greece now, that's okay. If France is growing without English interference, then France is going to be coming into the Med soon, especially if it's an EF. So as Turkey, I'm comfortable there, and with not getting Greece early on. Although if I can work out a deal, phenomenal. From Austria's perspective, it doesn't feel like I'm working with Russia, but I would like to I would like to to try to work with him somehow. So what can I, because I want to get him off my back. So what can I do? Can I offer him support into Bulgaria? It's not likely to work. So I guess what I can offer him is support into into Bulgaria in the fall. So I can get myself into Greece as Austria and support Russia into Bulgaria in the fall. That's the plan if I want to stay good with Russia. And what I'm hoping for in that situation is to create some tension between Germany and Russia, or England and Russia at one point, so that perhaps I can work with Turkey to push back against Russia, or even get Turkey to work against Russia at a moment when I'm also able to swindle my way into Bulgaria myself, for example, or maybe the Aegean myself. The dream scenario would be somehow I'm working with Italy, and Italy is getting tied up with France from a fleet perspective, and I'm able to get more of Turkey than I otherwise would. So some things to consider there. From Italy, if I'm good with Austria and I'm not taking these overtures from Russia that might be coming through, because it's pretty clear how Austria could fall swiftly in this setup. I mean, it's always the case that Austria can fall swiftly. Most countries, by the way, can be eliminated with a concerted effort. We have things like the Sea Line, which eliminate England, very quickly. If Russia, Germany, and France have a concerted effort. So Austria could be in a pickle there, but from Italy's perspective, I don't want to promote that, because I'm unlikely to, even if I were to get a position with 5 or 6 centers, it's unlikely that I'm going to be able to hold on to that, and unless Russia is really in some kind of trouble in the north. But even still, I'm probably going to have to be working counter to Turkish plans in that situation. It's hard for Italy and Turkey to work together long term. It's possible in the mid game, so that might be something to hope for. But I'm also worried about France growing so quickly as as Italy, and the plain fact is that there is a fleet in Marseille. So I really need to talk to France and try to convince him that he should work against England here. Even though strategically it doesn't seem like that is going to happen immediately, it's just something I want to hold in my back pocket. As Italy, I have the ability to affect the game even with 4 centers, even though it doesn't seem like I know where my 5th center is coming from if it's not Greece. So let's see what went down here. I guess I should make a prediction based on what I perceive the relationships to be, even though I've not seen the press. And so, gosh, what do I do? I think if I'm England, I've already antagonized Germany by blocking Holland, but now he can force his way in unless I provide the support. It seems like as England, I have to play into the English Channel. I don't want the French going there. I haven't seen any indication that the French and English are likely to be combative, but it's still really early, and the relationships can go many ways. So I'm probably playing English Channel. I could attempt a convoy with French support into Holland, something like this. France is probably happy to support that from Belgium instead of going for it himself. Meanwhile, that gets my army off of the mainland. So long term, he's happy with that. Do I, as England, take any overtures from Germany or Russia? I mean, I just antagonized Germany, so he's probably unlikely unless I'm able to rebuild trust in an incredible fashion via the press. And I'm not likely to go for St. Pete because how can I follow that up in spring? So I'm likely holding with Norway and attempting a convoy into Holland with French support and playing the English Channel. But the Frenchmen, meanwhile, probably also playing English Channel. Portugal, unless I'm going south, like unless I'm playing Marseille, Lyon, Portugal, Spain, South Coast, Portugal is probably going to MAO. It just feels like a decent, flexible position. But I guess we'll see if it's an EF right here. If it's an EF right here, then we're going to find out with Marseille to Lyon and Portugal to Spain South Coast. Otherwise, I think we'll see Marseille to Spain South Coast, Portugal to MAO, Spain to Gascony, Paris to Burgundy, supported by Belgium, if Belgium isn't supporting that convoy from England, and Brest English Channel. From Germany, I think I'm going to do the move I suggested in the last video, which is Denmark to north to cut any support possibly being given to the army in Belgium to slide over into Holland if it is an overt EF. I'm going to take Kiel into Holland, supported by Ruhr myself. I guess that's not guaranteed because Belgium could play to Ruhr to cut that support. However, I prefer, given that I have this, at least I have a little something going with Russia, at least in the early game here, and I want to reestablish my position. I can always go for Holland again in the fall. That I set up this Holland Ruhr Munich line instead of having this gap in Ruhr, which could be exploited later. So I'm gonna play Kiel to Holland with Ruhr support. Munich, depending on how I feel about France. France hasn't antagonized me at this point, so I feel like the move I just said is fair, and going to Burgundy what would that really do? Maybe I can play into Tyrolia to help the Austrians survive. Maybe Austria has come to me and said, "Hey, can I use your army in Tyrolia for a season?" Let's see. From Russia's point of view, it all depends on what I'm offered, really. I can improve my position I can improve my position by it would be really weird, but I could improve my position with Galicia to Bohemia and Warsaw to Galicia, but that would be hard to guarantee. So I'm more likely to try to work something out with either of Austria, Italy, or Turkey, and go from there. I think it's hard to say what my preference would be. I think I'm happy to work with Turkey right now, given that I think I could work against Turkey later. It seems like Germany and I are working well together, although that might just be a prophecy that I'm bringing into existence by continuing to talk about it. So let's see. I can safely play something like I can safely just support in position. That's by the way, the only way that I can guarantee holding rum, but I don't want to give up the black. And so if I get knocked out of Romania, so be it. And then I can make overtures with Italy later on. So let's see what happens. Let's just see what happens. Aha. So let's start in the north. Moscow does go to St. Petersburg, which bounces the attempted move from... Excuse me, this does not bounce. Norway goes to Barents, and Yorkshire is convoyed to Norway. So this is a pretty standard English continuation, because it really puts a lot of pressure based on where Sweden is positioned. It puts a lot of pressure on Russia to defend, even though it may have 2 units here, because there is a bit of a guessing game that can take place in the fall. Sweden can attack Norway, but if the army flows from Norway into St. Petersburg, supported by Barents, it can't be denied St. Petersburg. So in that situation, the Russian and English would trade centers. I don't know if that's good for either of them, but that's on the table. Bouncing in the black. It looks like Russia went for Budapest with support from Romania. But that was cut from Serbia. So it looks like everything is going to stand in the Balkans. No surprise there. That happens quite often, doesn't it? And Munich does play into Tyrol. So Munich is actually going to... No, everything is going to bounce. Everything is going to bounce back here. But Italy sneakily takes Trieste, which is unguarded. So Austria, I think Austria oftentimes just has to trust Italy. You just have to trust, because what other game do you have? If you're defending, if Italy wants to play this way, then sometimes there's not much you can do as Austria. Because you just have, if Italy wants to play this way, then they're gonna be part of eliminating you, and they'll stay in the game for a while. But strategically, when Italy plays this way, certain things have to be so in the balance of power around the board for it to be good. We'll see, because we don't know the relationships between these players and how they're thinking and what kind of midterm plans they may have. So it does look like Italy is going to at least take Trieste here in the spring. Can they hold it? What is Austria's reaction to this? Do they just say F you and I'm going to take Trieste back? That remains to be seen. They also play the fleet into Apulia, probably with eyes on the Adriatic next. It's a very interesting approach. Very interesting approach indeed. Now, what are your other options with that fleet? We didn't talk about that just now, but it certainly looks anti-Austrian, doesn't it? It does allow you to support and cover Venice if needed. Standard from Turkey here. It looks like he didn't make any friends and just wanted to cut Serbian support in the event that Budapest was moving, or if Serbia was moving itself, it could take Serbia himself. France was a little leery of Burgundy here, and so self bounces. I'm not so sure about that, to be honest. And maybe he wanted to keep Paris flexible to move somewhere else, but where would it be going, right? So I think I prefer supporting myself to Burgundy, but maybe he doesn't want to antagonize the German, and he wants to say, look, just in case you went there, I'm going to bounce you, but I don't need to be there because I want us to be good while I take care of some other plans that I have. And it looks like he has some plans to go into this region over here. At least based upon these two fleet moves. It's not necessarily that case, but it certainly sets him up to play into Irish Sea or NAO. It's going to be tough for England to defend. I mean, what does he do? Does he slide into Wales next turn? Does he bounce again in the English Channel? Meanwhile, like Irish Sea and NAO are wide open. And that army has just been convoyed. What do you know? So the fall is going to be interesting here. If I'm France and it looks like I'm not moving on Italy, which I think is a smart move. Looks like you have reasonable relationship with Germany. If I was looking at the board fresh, it's looking a fair bit here like an FG with Russia being just fine with that. And it looks like England decided he could try to take advantage of Russia, although what does he do next? And taking a big risk getting the army over there without France necessarily being on board. And by the way, England has antagonized Germany, so Germany did go ahead and try to cut just to make sure this Ruhr army got into Holland. Now, maybe he plays Ruhr to Holland because he wants to guarantee it, like we talked about. It does leave Ruhr open. It does give you the army in Kiel, which can defend against Russia if Russia makes a move against you, something like Galdasil and War to Prussia, things like this later. So it does have that latent defensive effect as well. So I don't mind it at all. Coming here in the fall, it looks like there's this guessing game here between Russia and England. England can take St. Petersburg unopposed, but he risks losing Norway in that scenario. Really, he should. I mean, if we think about this again, like, was this the right move for England to make at this moment? Having antagonized Germany from the opening. Remember, he refused him Holland, not really thinking ahead to see that Germany was going to be able to get Holland himself in 1902. In most cases, the English player would have needed French help to deny Germany Holland again in 02. So all you've done as England is antagonize Germany. You've been pretty neutral with France, and now you're going after Russia. So you've antagonized Germany, and now you're antagonizing your other northern neighbor here, and you don't know what your situation is with France. So two neighbors that aren't really on your side, and one that you're not sure about. Something to consider. You think you might be going to 5 centers here, but 2 neighbors and 1 neighbor you're unsure about, which may be sliding in the side door here as soon as the fall. So let's see if Italy can hold on to possible gains here. Let's see if Turkey decides to provide a support from the Aegean, or maybe make a deal with the Italians. Are the Austrians going to fall real quick, or do they have other plans? And is the French going to make the move into the Irish Sea or the NAO right now? Right now, while the English army is away from home. Let's see. So it looks like that prediction came through. NAO, I like it because it does border the Norwegian versus going into the Irish Sea. You can still convoy into Liverpool yourself. The only place you can't convoy into is into Wales. Although you have gained the English Channel because London went into Wales. That was the only defense against. It seemed like that was the only defense against such a attack as this, and you can see that he was concerned about it. So that suggests something from a press or diplomacy standpoint that might be worth looking into from a strategy perspective. So what happened over here? It looks like Germany provided support of the English army. Into Sweden. So England is going to take Sweden. But, Russia smartly plays St. Petersburg to Norway. But maybe not so smartly. He's going to take Norway and lose St. Petersburg. Very interesting. Very interesting indeed. And not only that, but the Russian is going to take a hit in the south as well. So the Russian got up to 6 real early, and maybe this is part of Germany's plan to say, look, like the Russians growing quickly, even though I helped them get into Sweden in the spring. England, even though you blocked me or you knocked me in Holland, I'm happy to help you into Sweden. If we can just forget that happened. Let's work this out. Meantime, knowing potentially that France is moving up in England's rear. So from Germany's perspective, like this is played quite well, to my opinion, because I've helped England into Sweden, and I can tell Russia, look, he made a concrete offer. It didn't help me, but it wasn't good for you. And Russia can't do much about it, and he's probably more upset with England, even though he should probably be really upset with me as Germany, because I allowed this to happen. I provided the support from Denmark into Sweden. But if, as Germany, I knew that France was going to be making this play, I can weaken my neighbor Russia and usually midterm antagonist in Russia as Germany. I can weaken Russia. I can seemingly help England, but also in the back of my mind see that France is going to make that play. So I'm weakening two neighbors without antagonizing them directly, at least in a way that they can affect me. So I've helped England. I've hurt Russia in a way that he can't really fight back against me. And meanwhile, things have gone swimmingly if I'm Germany in the south, because Turkey has picked up Romania. And this army has no retreats because Warsaw came to Ukraine. Warsaw came to Ukraine. And what happened over here? Adriatic, as we suspected. Oh, I see. We had a we have an AT, ladies and gentlemen. We have an AT. I'm very interested by the AT. I think it's good for both Austria and Turkey. And in the mid game, it's hard for Austria if there's a strong Turkey. But as we're seeing right here, it can be very effective. Greece supports Aegean to Ionian, forcing the retreat there. Suddenly, Naples is open. Although we'll probably see a build come there. Be interesting to see what happens in the mid game of this game. So Trieste is gonna be Italian. But oh, I see. So we did have a concrete offer here, and I'm sorry I took so long to notice this. Like, I'm not looking at the moves exactly, and sometimes it's hard to see them here, but no excuses. Brest gains a channel, Paris to Picardy. England supports Holland to Belgium. Kiel follows up. So Germany's actually going to pick up Belgium and Holland. The French retreat to the Ruhr. But because they did the self-bounce again, Burgundy's open. So France is going to have Gascony, Picardy, and the Ruhr. But they're going to have to take one off. So where do you take off if you're France? So if we look ahead to the possible builds here, which we'll see in the next video, where would you take off and where would you build? Where would you build? It looks like Serbia will stay on 4. Austria will stay on 4. Looks like because they're picking up Greece and losing Trieste. Turkey will be on 4. Russia. Russia is going to pick up Norway, but lose Sweden and St. Petersburg and Romania. That's -2, ladies and gentlemen. -2. What do you do in this situation? This is the finals. I don't want to give up the North because I might just be giving up the match. By the way, I should mention, I don't know the scoring system. I'm going to have to check with Tyler on that. I'm just giving up the match if I give up the North. But I am in a tough spot here in the lower part of the board too. So I'm -2, but one of my armies was piffed, so I have to remove one. I have to remove one unit. I think I'm gonna give up the Norway army because that's just gonna be taken out by the English player in the next turn anyway. However, if I were to leave Norway as is and keep Gulf of Bothnia, I can support myself back into St. Petersburg and just try to hold that. Meanwhile, I still have Galicia, Ukraine, and Sev. But really, like if I give up, if I give up Galicia, what can I, what is my plan here? I'm really just hoping that Italy can continue to, to be fair, I'm going to be able to work with Italy with my army in Galicia. So maybe I can hold the north. Maybe. Hard decision. Let's see what he did. And it seems like as Germany, I've actually opened all my centers, so I can safely play Army Munich and Fleet Kiel with 2 builds. It looks like England can make that home build to defend. And there's a lot to play for here. A lot to play for. Let's see what happens. You thought I was going to say in the next video, but we're going to see what happens right now with the builds. Let's do it. So, Russia kept their northern position. Very interesting. Very stubborn. But I like it. Let's say I don't hate it. Removing Galicia is interesting, though. Removing Galicia is interesting because it's such a good position. And I actually misread the board because Italy did get into Vienna, so Austria is pretty much out. Losing Greece, taking off in Greece, but losing Vienna, so it's down to 3. The Frenchmen decided to remove the North Atlantic and keep Ruhr. And the German did not build in Kiel, but in Berlin and Munich. So, very interesting season ahead of us in spring of 1903. And until then, this has been Eric, and I'll see you in the next video.